Welcome to November 8th, 2013 early release, focused on educator effectiveness and student learning outcomes. My name is Terry Willems, and I am the Chief Administrator for Educator Development and Effectiveness. Our team is very excited to be sharing this afternoon with you to improve support, improve practice, and improve outcomes. Our objectives today for learning include participants developing an understanding of the teacher evaluation process as part of the educator effectiveness system. Participants learning the teacher's role and expectations for the evaluation process. Participants learning the evaluator's role and expectations for the evaluation process. And participants being an engaged participant, providing meaningful feedback and courageously follow. Our agenda today includes review of Educator Effectiveness, or EE, cycle, an introduction of Educator Effectiveness Plan, EEP, and review Student Learning Objectives, SLOs, compared to current professional goals and to clarify student learning objectives. What does it mean to courageously follow? We'd like to welcome you to a leadership lesson.
If you've learned a lot about leadership and making a movement, then let's watch a movement happen start to finish in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. So it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out and you brave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut, and it's not two nuts. 3 is a crowd, and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers, because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point, and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. And over the next minute you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is overglorified. Yes, it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. See, we're told that we all need to be leaders, but that would be really ineffective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join in.
An overview and welcome will follow by Dr. Tony Evers, Department of Public Instruction, our Associate Director of ESEA, Lisa Bohm, and our Educator Effectiveness team. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy the listening.
There's been a lot of talk about new teacher and principal evaluation in Wisconsin. What has this evaluation system been like for educators who've been piloting it in Wisconsin?
What it's changed about us is the collaborative nature between the administration and the teachers. And I think we all feel very hopeful that it will make our teaching better.
Evaluations are now around how are we going to get better at what I chose to get better at and get some feedback from your administrator or your superintendent.
Are you probably using less anecdotal information than we've used in the past and really using some hard numbers, hard evidence?
In Wisconsin, we've always been concerned about improving instruction across the state. It's part of our DNA. Thankfully, educator evaluation has evolved. I've been in public education more than 36 years now. And I think, frankly, we've never done a real good job of evaluating people's performance and actually using that evaluation for improving instruction. Well, I'm here to tell you that we're in a different place now. We've created a new Wisconsin Educator Effectiveness System. It's a great model. It's going to be used to improve instruction. It's going to be used to provide principals and teachers a roadmap for improvement. We're finally going to get to the point where we actually can start to personalize and customize professional development. The best way to improve student achievement is to have strong teachers and strong principals. It's the absolute key to this. So that is why I'm really excited about this program, and I believe that it's absolutely connected directly to our Agenda 2017, which is all about closing achievement gaps and graduation gaps and lifting up all children.
Many people mistakenly believe that Act 10, or the state's No Child Left Behind waiver, prompted Wisconsin to develop an educator effectiveness system. This is not the case. In 2010, Superintendent Evers convened a diverse group of educational stakeholders to discuss ways to empower and support educators in continuous improvement of professional practice in order to lead to improved student outcomes. Across 2011, this design team reviewed research and best practices both nationally and locally to develop the Wisconsin Educator Effectiveness System. The team selected an evaluation model that measures educator practice and student outcomes equally. It takes multiple measures and multiple forms of evidence into account and specifically identifies each educator's strengths and areas of needed improvement. To support evaluation of teacher practice, the team selected the internationally respected Danielson Framework for Teaching. A similar model has been developed for evaluating principals' professional practice. Wisconsin's system differs from those implemented in other states. Our system was built to empower educators, support their professional growth, and draw upon their expertise to develop a system which ultimately improves student outcomes. Our system was designed by and for Wisconsin educators. DPI intentionally chose an incremental implementation phase, which allowed a full year of design for the system and 2 full years to pilot the system. DPI has developed a training plan and is developing training materials. DPI has contracted with CSAS to support local implementation. Pilot participants and external reviewers from UW-Milwaukee have actively participated in providing feedback to refine the systems. One piece of feedback pilot participants have given DPI is that the educator effectiveness system has positively impacted their practice.
So seeing the differences within the different levels of teaching, you also saw the videos. You actually got to apply your knowledge towards, those videos, taking notes, looking for evidence yourself. It makes you become more aware of what you're doing in your own classroom.
So I really appreciated the specificness of a framework and what the teaching actually looks like in the classroom, and then next steps for how to improve.
When I created my SLO, I realized how much independence and freedom was involved in it. Whatever I developed depended completely on my needs, my classroom, my teaching style, and what I wanted to improve. So therefore, it made it very flexible for what I really wanted to do in my classroom.
It's probably the most sophisticated tool that I've seen in my career in 32 years. Once we begin using that on a day-to-day basis and become more comfortable with it, I think we're both going to become better evaluators and help teachers to develop into better instructors.
In Wisconsin, improving practice and helping all students is what our educators are all about. They care. This new system of educator effectiveness will support all teachers in the state of Wisconsin. It will help to improve student learning. And most importantly, it'll move us towards that overall goal is to make sure that every child graduates prepared for college and career.
Hello, I'm Lisa Bohm. I'm the Associate Director for ESEA. I am going to provide you with a brief overview of where the new Educator Effectiveness Initiative originated and its connection to ESEA. ESEA stands for Elementary and Secondary Education Act. The ESEA was established in 1965, and its fundamental principle is providing educational opportunities to our most disadvantaged youth. DPI supports and complies with the basic principles of ESEA, which are accountability, teacher quality, and research-based education. ESEA was reauthorized in 2001 under the No Child Left Behind Act. School districts across the country found NCLB to be too prescriptive, with a heavy focus on punishment rather than supporting improvement. As a result, the U.S. Department of Education offered states the opportunity to waive certain ESEA NCLB provisions. That's where educator effectiveness comes in. Wisconsin's NCLB waiver of 2012 and Wisconsin Act 166 have specific requirements around educator effectiveness. Wisconsin Act 166 is what prompted the changes to educator effectiveness. Act 166, which was legislated in 2011, requires DPI to develop an educator evaluation system. It further requires that 50% of the total evaluation score must be based on standards of professional practice, and the other 50% on measures of student performance. Teachers must be evaluated with reference to the 4 domains, which are planning and preparation, classroom environment, instruction, and professional responsibilities and development. Act 166 also says that implementation of the evaluation system must begin in the 2014-2015 school year. Act 166 is sometimes confused with Act 10, which is the Wisconsin Budget Repair Bill that impacted collective bargaining and benefits. Act 10 was enacted prior to Act 166 and is not a part of the legislation on educator effectiveness. When the ESEA waiver was written, it had to comply with Act 166. In other words, while the NCLB ESEA waiver did not prompt the new educator effectiveness system, the waiver must be aligned with the requirements of Act 166. The ESEA waiver has 3 main principles, which are college and career-ready expectations, a system of accountability, and educator effectiveness. The primary purpose of the educator effectiveness system is to support a system of continuous improvement of educator practice that leads to improved student learning. So, what's in the waiver? Here are the highlights. Evaluations for both principals and teachers will include multiple measures. 50% of an evaluation will be based on educator practice, and the other 50% will be based on student outcomes. The educator practice portion of the evaluation will be based on Danielson's framework for teaching. Multiple observations are required during summative evaluations. Certified professional staff who have assignments outside of the classroom or who work with special populations will also be evaluated using the Danielson framework. However, adaptations will be made to the framework. Principals will be evaluated using rubrics based on the 2008 ISLIC standards. The other 50% of an evaluation will be based on student outcomes. Measures used and the weight of the measures will vary based on the availability of measures. Some examples of measures are district-adopted standardized assessment results, statewide standardized assessments, student learning outcomes, or SLOs, and high school graduation rates. The evaluation system will include formative and summative elements linked to the educator's professional development plan. Individual educator ratings are confidential and will not be publicly reported. The system will be piloted 2012 through 2014 and then fully implemented in the state by the 2014-2015 school year. This was a summary of what is in the ESEA NCLB waiver relative to educator effectiveness. The full document can be found on the DPI website at www.dpi.state.wi.us. Pages 120 through 139 of the waiver apply specifically to educator effectiveness. I hope you have a better understanding of how the new educator effectiveness system was originated and its connection to the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. Thank you for listening.
What this means for the Green Bay School District is that the educator effectiveness model will be implemented as intended. It will not be tied to compensation for teachers, and it will not be used as a gotcha. The intent is to provide greater support to teachers and to administrators with the overall goal of improving student learning.
Educator effectiveness is really like a rebooting of our current evaluation system. There's now a clear focus on collaboration, reflection, and the gathering of evidence and educator growth.
There's a long history of collaboration between the Green Bay Education Association and the Green Bay School District. In 2000, both GBEA and the district worked together to bring the Charlotte Danielson model to this area. In 2007, and then again in 2009, both organizations worked together to tweak, wordsmith, and update this model as implemented here in the district. Since 2010, both WEAC and GBEA have been a part of the educator effectiveness model both at the state level and in the district. We've had reps working together with district administrators since last year, and we will continue to work together in the future.
Last year, a design team was implemented to look at two possible educator effectiveness tools, the CESA 6 model and the Teachscape model. This year, several schools are teaming up with GBEA and the district with teacher volunteers that are piloting this educator effectiveness model. The DPI is looking for feedback from our district on possible revisions and refinement of this educator effectiveness model.
Right now, administrators are learning about the new evaluation system, and soon they will begin their training to become certified evaluators. This certification process is intended to eliminate bias and help create reliability and objectivity amongst raters.
As a teacher, I am honored to be part of the educator effectiveness team for the Green Bay Public Schools. Together, we are working on designing the learning for our district around the evaluation process that is part of educator effectiveness. I'm impressed by the collaborative design of the evaluation process and am pleased that the process is built on the Danielson Framework for Teaching, something we are familiar with and have used here in Green Bay for many years. What excites me most about educator effectiveness is the additional support that is purposely structured to empower educators. I believe we have the opportunity to become more focused and purposeful in our work to improve both our professional practice and student learning. We begin full implementation next fall with the 2014-2015 school year. To prepare for that, we are working with educators from 2 pilot schools, Nicolet and Lombardi, and using their feedback to shape our professional learning for the district. Our educator effectiveness team will be working in close partnership with teaching and learning as we move forward. This school year, we will be working collaboratively as administrators and teachers to prepare for the statewide implementation of educator effectiveness.
If you're curious about this educator effectiveness model, I suggest going to the DPI website, the GBEA website, or the Green Bay Area Public School intranet website to learn more about the educator effectiveness evaluation system.
The educator effectiveness cycle begins with an orientation, which is part of our process today, and it will be part of your process each fall. The next step is to review student data to develop and write your student learning objectives. You will complete a self-rating reflection in order to write your professional practice goals. We will also be defining that process today. As the cycle continues, you will meet with your principal or evaluator to discuss your educator effectiveness plan and have the plan approved. In addition to the observation process, which all current Green Bay teachers have experienced, you will collect evidence for your student learning objectives. There will then be a mid-year review with your principal or evaluator, where you will provide an update on your student learning objectives and make any revisions that may be necessary. You will then continue to go through the observation process and continue to collect evidence. In May, you will work with your principal or evaluator to review and rate your professional practice and student learning objectives. This rating will be combined with the observation data as part of your final evaluation conference.
Green Bay Area Public Schools Professional Growth Plan compared to Wisconsin's Educator Effectiveness Plan. The table in front of you compares the timeline for Green Bay Area Public Schools' current professional growth plan and the timeline for Wisconsin's Educator Effectiveness Plan, slated for implementation during the 2014-15 school year. The timeline for both plans are relatively similar. For the Wisconsin Educator Effectiveness Plan, it begins in September, where teachers will begin to prepare to write student learning objectives. In October, student learning objectives and professional practice goals will be written into the Educator Effectiveness Plan and go through the final approval process between the teacher and evaluator. The mid-year review will allow the teacher and principal time to review student learning objective growth targets to determine if the target needs adjusting, whether the target is too low, too high, or strategies being implemented are not working as they were intended. Again, as you can see from the table in front of you, both growth plans are relatively similar in the timelines that they are to be implemented.
Teachers will participate in the following as part of the educator effectiveness cycle. There will be one announced observation. The observation will include a pre-observation conference, the observation, and a post-observation conference. There is one unannounced observation. This will include the observation and a post-observation conference. For both the announced and unannounced observations, the post-observation conference should be held within 7 days of the observation. In addition, there will be 3 to 5 walkthroughs, which are informal and unannounced. You will also create your educator effectiveness plan. Your plan will consist of writing 2 to 3 student learning objectives or goals, and you will write 2 professional practice goals. Next, we have roles and responsibilities of teachers. First, you will attend an evaluation orientation, and this will be provided by your evaluator in early fall. You will follow the process of the educator effectiveness evaluation cycle. You'll start by reviewing your student learning data to identify area of student learning needs. Considerations for this may include Common Core standards, district initiative, building goals, school district improvement plans, and other relevant content area standards. You will complete your educator effectiveness plan. This plan includes 2 student learning objectives written in the SMART goal format, and 2 professional practice goals. Throughout the year, you will work with your evaluator to complete the observation process. You will collect and provide evidence of your practice, and you will learn and utilize Teachscape throughout the process to document and organize evidence. The role and responsibilities of principals or evaluators are to complete evaluator training and become Teachscape certified, to provide evaluation orientation to teachers, to follow the process to review data, approve student learning objectives, and professional practice goals as part of the Educator Effectiveness Plan. Evaluators will work with teachers to complete the observations and the evaluation process.
So today we'll be spending time digging deeper into educator effectiveness, specifically school and student learning objectives. Please remember that the information shared with you is current as of today. The DPI is continually gathering feedback from pilot teams across the state. Remember the evaluation pie chart? Educator effectiveness is designed to use multiple measures to evaluate teachers and principals across 2 main areas: educator practice and student outcomes. The 50% of the evaluation that is based on educator practice uses the Danielson framework for teachers and the ISLIC standards for principals. The other 50% of the evaluation is based on student outcomes. These are the results of state assessments, district assessments, and SLOs, which are student or school learning objectives. It is important to remember that educator effectiveness is for teachers and principals. This isn't just teacher effectiveness, it's educator effectiveness. So let's take a closer look at the student outcomes half of the pie chart. When we look at the student outcomes side of the principal evaluation, that 50% is divided into several smaller chunks. For principals, 22.5% of their evaluation is based on school learning objectives. That's what we call SLOs for principals. And again, for principals, the left half is the supervision and evaluation side. It includes a rubric that is organized into domains and components and focuses on the ISLIC standards. When we use the same pie chart for teachers, the student outcomes side is a little different. Student outcomes for teachers include SLOs, district chosen assessment, and school-wide reading or graduation rates. All of those together make up the student outcomes half. The other half of the circle is based on the InTask teaching standards and utilizes the Danielson framework for teaching, organized into 4 domains and 22 components. So taking a closer look at the student outcomes side of the evaluation, that 50% is divided into several smaller chunks. 45% of the evaluation is based on student learning objectives, or what we call SLOs for teachers.
Teachscape is a platform that teachers and evaluators will use for educator effectiveness process. Teachscape is built on the Charlotte Danielson Framework 2013 edition. It requires that evaluators complete an in-depth study of the framework and the evaluation process. All evaluators are required to pass a rigorous certification assessment. Teachscape software will be utilized for planning, data storage, and to access all completed evaluation forms.
So what is good teaching?
Let's look at our first section, which is about, and see if we can generate some ideas.
If you were to walk into a classroom right now, what might you see or hear there that would convince you that you're in the presence of an expert teacher? That is, what would make you think, if I had a child this age, I'd want them in this room? In writing the framework, I collected together people's ideas into several big domains.
The framework for teaching consists of 4 domains. Domain 1, planning and preparation. Domain 2, the classroom environment. Domain 3, instruction. And Domain 4, professional responsibilities. The framework for teaching is composed of 22 components within these 4 domains. Each component describes an important aspect of teaching, and taken together, the components capture everything important about that domain. Teaching at each component is further defined by 4 levels of performance. These levels of teaching performance are described in rubrics, which provide educators with a roadmap for how they can improve their teaching.
The framework for teaching is used to definitely enhance my lessons. The rubric allows me to pick what will be used to reach the goals for the children, to enhance myself.
Every component in it is grounded in solid research, and it's also been validated. And what that means is that when teachers' performance is assessed on the components of the framework, those whose performance is rated at a high level, their students learn more than the students of teachers who perform at a lower level. That is, high performance in teaching predicts high levels of learning with students. So teachers can be confident that when they are evaluated using it, they are being evaluated on the important aspects of teaching.
It generates both equity and clarity for teacher performance. There is a common understanding of proficient practice and a common understanding that teaching is both a sum of all its parts, as well as a very detailed but very subtle practice that requires a subset of skills that aren't always evident on the surface level.
When you look out your window, what do you see?
Traffic.
Traffic. So
Right in the voice of a 5-year-old, not of a senior looking back on the experience. Now,
The framework for teaching is a generic instrument. There's not a different one for middle school science and high school English and kindergarten, right? It's one framework. The framework for teaching is not a checklist of specific behaviors. It can't be, because the behaviors themselves are different. But the ideas underlying what you observe are the same. The underlying structure is the same, and that's what's important for people to understand.
If you have difficulty, what do you do next?
You would just redo it until you get it right and keep checking yourself.
Good.
As a teacher, I think I can grow from the value of the framework. I think if I'm given a suggestion on an observation, I can grow with that. I can learn from it. We want to be able to be the distinguished teachers that we know we can be.
When we have an evaluation system of teaching, it can't just be about what teachers do, because that's not sufficient. Then the evaluation of teaching has to also understand teachers' thinking about how they decided to do X rather than Y. And therefore, any serious evaluation of teaching practice can't just be about what people do, but it has to be understanding also their reasons for doing it.
As a follow-up to watching the Teachscape video, you will be participating in a self-reflection activity. You will see that there are 7 statements posted on charts in your meeting area. You will be rotating through each of these charts, reading each statement and indicating whether you feel the statement is true or false. Your principal will let you know which color you will use for true and which color you will use for false. Remember, there are no right or wrong answers. We want your reaction to each statement. There is a second step to the activity. Directions will be given after you complete the true-false section. Please pause this video now. The second part of this activity is to rotate through the charts again. This time, please reread the statement and write any thoughts, questions, or comments you have about the statement. After you've rotated through all the charts, you will have discussion time with your colleagues. Please pause the presentation now.
Teacher evaluation. Currently, the Department of Public Instruction has defined teachers as employees whose primary responsibilities include all of the following: instructional planning and preparation, managing a classroom environment, pupil instruction. Further work will determine whether staff are teachers or other educator roles, sometimes being referred to as ed specialists. Regardless of your role, all stakeholders will be impacted by educator effectiveness, and we are glad you could join us in today's professional learning.
A major component of educator effectiveness are the school or student learning objectives. Our learning targets are: participants will define school learning objectives, SLOs for principals. Participants will define student learning objectives, SLOs for teachers. Participants will identify the process for creating, monitoring, and evaluating SLOs, school or student learning objectives, depending on your role in the school. The SLO acronym has two meanings. For principals, SLOs are school learning objectives, goals established and written by the building principal. School learning objectives are focused at the school level. For teachers, SLOs are student learning objectives, goals established and written by a teacher for an entire classroom or for a targeted group population within a grade level or classroom.
So what are SLOs? School and student learning objectives are detailed, measurable goals for student academic growth to be achieved in a specific required period of time, typically 1 year, and they are developed collaboratively by educators and their evaluators. This is similar to our current goal setting process. However, a key factor in SLO development is that it must be a collaborative process, meaning that the educator and the evaluator work together to create the SLO. Evidence has shown that setting rigorous and ambitious goals for student outcomes leads to greater academic growth and performance by students. It also leads to increased teacher performance. The SLO process has great impact on student learning when teachers and administrators work together to examine practices that have a positive impact on student outcomes. So let's take a look at the SLO process. Educators and their evaluators meet 3 times during the year to prepare, review, and approve the school or student learning objectives, check for progress, and or make adjustments to the SLO, and summarize the results.
This is an overview of the process from the DPI. The SLO, School or Student Learning Objective process, provides a way of formalizing a collaborative goal-setting process between educators and their evaluators. Educators use assessment results and other measurable outcomes as evidence of student learning. The goal is to measure how much students learned during the time they were in the classroom. The process also focuses on strengthening educator practice. School or student learning objectives can be established for individual educators or for teams of educators. Sources of evidence that can be used to measure student learning can vary from standardized assessments, such as common assessments or end-of-course exams, to performance demonstrations and portfolios of student work. School or student learning objectives can be established for an entire class, a subset of students, or for an entire school in the case of principals. The first step in the SLO process is establishing and preparing student learning objectives. Principals and teachers first review data to identify an area of academic need and a target student population. Next, teachers identify the appropriate high-quality assessment tool or evidence sources that will be used both to monitor and track student growth over time and determine the final student learning outcomes. Drawing upon baseline assessment data, teachers establish student learning goals. as statements that are SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Teachers then document the strategies and supports necessary to meet the goals specified in the school or student learning objectives. Once the teachers have completed these steps, teachers write student learning objectives. The Wisconsin SLO, School or Student Learning Objective Approval Rubric, is reviewed to assure that the objectives are high quality. Step 2 in the SLO process is to meet with the evaluator for approval of the student learning objectives. Teachers meet with their evaluators in a collaborative process to review the student learning objectives. During this collaborative meeting, together, teachers and their evaluators review the draft goals, approve or adjust the goals, identify actions, resource needs, and evidence sources identified to meet the goals, and finalize goals for approval. Step 3 in the SLO process is to collect evidence of progress toward meeting the school or student learning objectives. Throughout the school year, evaluators and teachers collect and provide evidence of students' progress towards the student learning objective. In January, evaluators provide formative feedback during the formal meeting called the mid-year review. Based upon the data collected, educators may adjust the instructional or leadership strategies utilized to ensure that the targeted population for the student learning objective is progressing toward the stated objectives. The final step in the SLO process is to participate in a final educator evaluation. Teachers collect and finalize results regarding student growth using evidence sources and submit final evidence to their evaluators. Teachers and their evaluators participate in a final evaluation conference to discuss goals, outcomes, and professional development opportunities, complete a final rating of the student learning objectives using the SLO scoring rubric, and discuss next year's goals. This step completes the student learning objective process for the school year.
The Educator Effectiveness Plan. Your Educator Effectiveness Plan includes student learning objectives and your professional practice goals. In order to create your professional practice goals, you will complete or review your self-rating of the 4 domains in Danielson's framework. Your professional practice goals focus on your professional growth and professional learning. Your goals will increase the likelihood of success of your student learning objectives. By aligning your professional practice goals to student learning objectives, you will maximize the impact of student learning outcomes.
Today you will have an opportunity to begin the self-reflection process that is part of educator effectiveness. You will be given one of Charlotte Danielson's 22 components that together make up the 4 domains of her 2013 Framework for Teaching. We will focus our attention today on Component 2A, Creating an Environment of Respect and Rapport. You will also be given Appendix B, Wisconsin Teacher Self-Rating Form. Our task today is to understand the elements of Component 2A, including the critical attributes and possible examples that define the 4 levels outlined on pages 36 and 37. Your task will be to read through pages 35 through 37, outlining Component 2A for creating an environment of respect and rapport. After reflecting on the critical attributes and possible examples for each level, you will be asked to complete the teacher self-rating form, Appendix B. 2A under Domain 2, the classroom environment. Remember, you are only completing one of the 22 components today based on your own self-reflection of your level of performance based on the indicators for each level. At a future date, you will be reflecting on all of the components of the Danielson Framework for Teaching as part of educator effectiveness. Please pause the presentation at this time to provide time for independent reading, reflecting, and rating of Component 2A.
Thank you for being an engaged participant in today's early release. We look forward to continuing to work with you in partnership at the January 10th, 2014 early release. Our focus will be on further study of student learning objectives, investigation of student learning objectives and the rubric, assessment of sample student learning objectives using the rubric, and review of student learning objectives expectations. Earlier, in addition to asking you to be an engaged participant, we also ask that you provide meaningful feedback. Our closing activity is a graphic organizer, and we ask that you take some time individually in your collaborative learning teams or as a whole school to provide input and questions within the 4 quadrants. Please complete the urgent and important quadrant, the important not urgent quadrant, the cares, concerns, and questions quadrant, and the compliments and celebrations quadrant, and send your completed graphic organizers to Principal Sarah Lang at Wequiak. We will be gathering the information and putting it to good use as we plan forward, and our educator effectiveness team works in partnership with you